Oh, okay. I am live. All right. So, cancer. Cancer. The science of nutrition. This is first slides first slides from first week of class. All right. So, jumping right into it. So, cancer is the second leading cause of death. The first being heart disease, which is cardiovascular disease or CVD. So 30 to 35% of all cancers are diet related. Huge. Diet related, so it has a lot to do, obviously, the food we eat, but also the food available or food we choose, really. So it's a combination. There is a figure here. Proportion of cancer causes by major risk factors and level of economic development. Okay, so let's see what this is saying. So it's developed countries versus developing countries. So developed countries, like the US, and developing countries, countries who are not at that status yet. So, what are the main takeaways? Are that in developed countries like US, infectious diseases are not common, are not prevalent at all, where they are in developing countries. So, going back to the first few slides, there was it the 1920s? Well, earlier, 1920s or so, when they first did an assessment of the leading causes of death. Infectious disease was one of them. So, or infectious disease were the leading cause of death, whereas now it's the opposite. It's more lifestyle related diseases. So, in developing countries, more infectious death. What else? Cancer causing risk factors in developing countries. The majority is diet related. The second is other, but they don't say what other is. The third is tobacco. So tobacco and so food and tobacco or diet related. Your diet and tobacco are two of the major risk factors for cancer in the US or countries like the US, developed countries. So I want to know what other is. Let me read the slides. Okay, non-modifiable risk factors. Is that what other is? Doesn't say. Because other is pretty significant. It doesn't say that. Oh, it does say the percentage. All right, so actually, diet related is 30%, but other is 39%. How do they say other? I wonder if it's non-modifiable risk factors. So maybe other, which is 39%. So actually, that's the biggest in developed countries. I'm going to focus on that. Developed countries like the US, others, 39% other is a major risk factor. 30 is diet and nutrition. 16 is tobacco, and the rest are pretty small. So it doesn't say what other is. So I'm going to say other is probably non-modifiable risk factors, which are your age. I don't know. Age, sex, or sex, gender, What else am I missing? Ethnicity and epigenetic variations, which again is a new study, or new studies are like coming out regarding the epigenetics. So it has a lot to do with your lineage and stuff like that. Um, your family back, your family background, but even further. Um, so I think that's other. So that seems like, because what does it say here? What other risk factors are related to the risk of cancer? Non-modifiable risk factors, so genetic age, sex, race, ethnicity, epigenetic variations. Then it says lifestyle related and environmental factors. Tobacco use, chemical carcinogens. That's a small percentage, but tobacco use, chemical carcinogens, tobacco or tobacco smoke, radiation. That reminds me of radiation treated vegetables like the strawberries that get treated with radiation to keep them living longer, or other fruits and vegetables that tend to spoil quickly are treated with radiation now. So there you go, carcinogen, or cancer causing. Yeah. Infectious disease. Okay, infectious disease is also a risk factor. Let me think about that. Infectious disease is a risk factor for cancer. Oh, I guess uh, like serious illnesses like HIV and things like that could onset cancer. So I guess. Oh, cancer is not infectious disease. No. I mean, HIV. Yeah. Let me write that down. See if this is why we're talking about it. Okay. So, what did I say? Oh, yeah, infectious disease. What? Cancer. Okay. All right. All right. So, and physical inactivity. So, I mean, you could say obesity. All the things are like kind of related. So, physical inactivity, being immobile. It's a chance. I don't think she's going to expect us to go deep, but I could imagine or take an educated guess that sedentary lifestyle, obesity, probably the combination of everything, combination of diet also, along with physical inactivity, and actually probably a long period of time. So not, I didn't work out this week, but I worked out next week. I think over time of not being physically active at all. That's like I think extreme, but I could be wrong. All right, so go back to my initial notes. All right, so here, let's see what she says. Oh, actually, my notes in class do say it. So infectious disease is, HPV. So she notes the example of HPV as one of the human papillomavirus. I don't know much about HPV, so I should research that anyway. So one of the infectious diseases that could lead to as a risk factor for cancer. We talked about non-modifiable. All right, so moving on to, I guess this is a diagram of risk factors. Having certain oncogenes is an example of a genetic fact. Oh, okay, wait. All right, so genetics lifestyle, and environment. So this is saying, or this graph is saying that that is a mix of what, or a combination of what the combination of risk can look like. So poor diet, that's having to do with nutrition. I mean, excuse me, lifestyle, environment, exposure to UV light, that's environmental factor, and then genetics, the oncogenes, as example, is the genetic factor in that. So when you have a combination of poor diet, overexposure of any ultraviolet, or we talked about radiation, um, and then genetics, when you have those um, three playing at the same time, and you're at high risk. So if you have a history in your genetics of some form of cancer, and then you have a sedentary lifestyle, then you have a moderate risk. But when all three are in play, then your risk is high. Actually, I should start showing this so I can reference it when I go back. How do you do this? Oh, there you go. So I know which one talking about, which diagram. But yeah, so basically just showing that genetics, lifestyle, and environment are three of the major risk factors for cancer. And depending on if all three are in play or how many are in play is uh, basically how much you're at risk. That's clear. All right, so definition of carcinogen, yes, anything that can cause or promote cancer. Diet factors. Okay, my notes are jumping ahead. So I'm gonna look at the slides. Development of cancer. So it just shows the development of cancer. So you start with a normal cell, and then initiation is caused by DNA damage or mutation. So that DNA damage or mutation could be anything. So going back to the idea that health is cumulative, excuse me, um, health is cumulative. It could happen anytime. So if all three are in play, all the risk factors, so environment, diet, well, diet and lifestyle are mixed in two. It's like, yeah. And diet, lifestyle, and what's the other one? Oh my gosh, I forgot already. Genetics. Yeah. Genetics. So if all three are in play, it could be any moment, the initiation stage. Like if you have bad diet and you've been smoking for 20 years, and then something in your DNA, not something, but it's in your genetics. It's just present. So, but it just hasn't been turned on. So it's kind of off until something sets it off. So at some point, you'd say you've been smoking for how many years? And then it's really like it can happen at any moment. I understand it in my brain, but that's initiation stage when you have like the it's like the perfect cocktail. It turns on when everything is in play, and um, it could be all of a sudden. And I think that's why the messaging is always to um, eat healthy, meaning eat whole foods that have a lot of antioxidant, anti-inflammatory foods, um, phytochemicals, like you learned earlier. Eat the rainbow because you're getting a variety of nutrients and getting a variety of vitamins and all that other stuff like phytochemicals. Yeah. So what that does is kind of keep, and also being active, and then also having an environment where it's healthy, healthy environment, um, meaning, and can also mean managing your stress really well too, because that could turn on. That's part of lifestyle and diet, and having an active lifestyle, working out, staying mobile. So that all of that keeps the initiation stage from happening. Because once the damage is done, or mutation, because also going back to what I'm remembering, phytochemicals also are the only things that can actually kill cancer cells. So it can stop this initiation stage. And so over time, if you've been living your life that way, you most likely won't have that occur. Um, so once the initiated cell, there's a damaged DNA. That's step two. Then promotion. Promotion involves increased cell division or decreased cell death. So DNA is damaged, but it exists. Promotion involves increased cell division or decreased cell death. All right, so there's a bunch of cells. For example, this example is in the pancreas. So the cells begin to grow. They just grow out of control. Um, so there's no cell death, or that it should die. Like once the body realizes, or you have been taking in those antioxidants, phytochemicals, all that, it will kill the cells. But in this case, you had the perfect cocktail, perfect mixture of risk factors. So the in this example, the pancreas cells, basically. No, this is anywhere. It could be anywhere. Precancerous cells. So precancerous cells begin to divide uncontrollably, or produce uncontrollably without stopping, when it should stop, because the body should say, "Oh, this is a cancer cells. It should die." And cell death is called apoptosis. All right, so progression is and that's the precancerous cells. So they're just initial stage of growth. Then there's progression stage. That's step number three is a progression stage. It's characterized by rapid growth of cancerous cells. So precancerous cells seem to be just that initial few cells. And then um, um, what it seems from this diagram is probably the size. Once it's reached a certain size, um, during metastasis, cancerous cells spread to other parts of the body. Hmm. Cancer cells spread to other parts of the body. So metastasis. So then it gets so big, the cells divide uncontrollably to the point where they get to other parts of the body, and they start to kind of branch out or travel. And that stage is called metastasis. Make sure I'm saying right. Metastasis. Okay. So if you go from precancerous cells to the initial cells to cancerous cells, and then eventually metastasis, yes, until it starts to travel. So that's the development of cancer. So nutrition and cancer. So this slide, is saying carcinogen is known as known to cause or promote cancer. Diet factors substantially influence its development. So the foods you eat really matter. Um, And whether you're having more carcinogens is obviously it's obviously going to be a huge difference from, whether you're not. So foods or their components cause cancer, foods or their components may promote it, foods and their components may protect. So your foods, it's powerful. It's really powerful. So it can cause, it can promote, or it can protect you. Um, so it's super powerful. And anything known to cause it is known as a carcinogen. All right, so it goes into red meat and cancer. So there's evidence links diets high in red or processed meat, processed meat with a moderately elevated risk of um, cancers of digestive tract, breast, and prostate. So one thing I do remember, it's 2 o'clock. Okay, one thing I do remember is that it depends on certain parts of the body, like say cancer in the pancreas, cancer in the breast, cancer in where else? Okay, prostate. Depends on where the location is kind of indication of where um I guess what risk factors were involved, or a small indication of where risk factors involved. So here it's saying evidence is linked that eating red meat, processed meat, is linked to prostate cancer, what do I say, breast cancer, and digestive tract cancer. So it's the red meat. If it's if you're getting if you're affected by digestive tract cancer, it's thought or could be hypothesized that it's due to the processed meat. Um, and what did it say? Processed meat contains nitrates. So if you look in processed meat, like in the grocery store, it does say nitrates on there. I mean, who's really going to know what nitrates mean? But nitrates, here we go, which form nitrosamides. Nitrosamines. I really need to learn how to pronounce these big words. I mean, personally, I don't really try not to eat foods that have words I can't pronounce, but there's a lot of terms that are complex. All right, nitrosamides, if I'm saying it right. Note to self, you know, ask or Google. So, so when a product has nitrates, it turns into this nitrosamides. So anytime you see nitrates on the package, when ingested, however you go to digestive process, not however, but when it goes through the digestive process, it turns into nitrosamides, which then become carcinogens in your body. So, which are carcinogens in your body. So the examples of that are hot dogs, ham, sausage, corned beef, canned meat. Okay, things that people eat every day, all day. And to be very careful. Um, but one personal note on that, like I used to love hot dogs. I mean, I kind of do, but I have to be careful. Use like an organic, um, almost like a homemade sausage as a hot dog because I've always been so scared of those hot dogs, and I didn't know why. Now I know it's, I mean, nitrates. But any packaged food, I'm always weary of. But as we can see, processed meats just are very dangerous, and any food that lasts for a very long time is something you should be conscious of or be wary of. But my adjustment to that is like I know I like hot dogs in summer. I know I like barbecue. So instead of the barbecue grill, like the charcoal, you get a gas grill. So, and the reason for that is because the charcoal grill actually is a uh, carcinogen. So anything that's been barbecued that's like blackened, you really shouldn't eat. And I know that seems like the best part, but it really is. It's a carcinogen. It's cancer causing. So my alternative to that is one, getting the gas grill, and then also either looking really carefully at the package, like who make it, like the small makers who make really good quality sausages and that pretend like they're hot dog. And the other struggle is finding bread that doesn't have all those processed ingredients. And I did find one, but I can't remember what the brand was. Um, I think it was local too. Um, but local sometimes is always best, and that's also looking at the ingredients in the back of the package, like what is in this um, bread, what is in this sausage. Okay, so back to my remedy for that. I love hot dogs, so I would actually eat or get the meat from a very reputable, like good quality um, grocer and or meat place quality, and make my own hot dogs, like roll it up. And I mean, it doesn't have casing or anything like that. It's probably not the tradition of hot dogs, but I put in, like, make the format, season it the way I like it, and then cook it. So, and shape it just like a hot dog. So you're getting the same. And once I eat it, it's the same feeling. Um, because honestly, again, it's all cumulative. So to be really careful. All right. So where did you stop? You're stopping at method of cooking meat and cancer. Oh, so I kind of talked about that a little bit, but I will pick up there and then finish it off for the next part. All right.